Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into something that sounds pretty complex, decentralizing telecom networks.
Right.
But we want to unpack why it might actually be good for, well, everyone. From your local coffee shop right up to the massive phone companies.
Exactly. We're going to look at how changing the way these networks are built, how they're maintained, how that could really shift connectivity, and maybe, just maybe, affect your bill.
Yeah, the bill part always gets attention.
Yeah.
Our main source here is some really interesting stuff from a Cointelegraph interview. They were at Consensus 2025 talking to Frank Mong. He's the COO of Nova Labs. You know, the folks behind the Helium network.
Ah, okay. Helium. Yes.
So our mission really is to get under the hood of what decentralizing telecom actually means. Who gets paid, basically, and why it matters for the coverage you get, the costs you see.
Let's do it. Because that core idea Frank Mong talked about is key.
Which part?
That this decentralized approach, it actually has financial wins for both sides, the small businesses and the big telecom players. It's not an either-or.
Okay, so break that down. How does my local cafe benefit?
Well, think about it. A bar, a restaurant, even just a corner store, if they host a wireless hotspot, one that connects to this Helium network, they're essentially helping build out coverage right there in their neighborhood. And they can actually generate revenue for doing that. They become part of the network infrastructure, and they get paid for it.
Okay, interesting. So, like, micro providers getting a piece of the action?
Sort of, yeah.
But how does that help the huge telcos, the Verizons, the AT&Ts? What are they getting out of someone else's hotspot?
Right. Good question. For them, it's a couple of things. First, they can access the telemetry data that comes off the Helium network.
Telemetry, meaning?
Like real-world data on network usage, signal strength, traffic patterns in very specific spots, stuff that's usually expensive to gather.
Okay.
So using this existing network, they can potentially cut down their own costs for monitoring and managing things. But maybe the bigger deal is extending their reach.
Into the dead zones.
Exactly. Those spots where building their own towers is just crazy expensive. This gives them a way to tap into coverage that's already there, provided by these smaller hotspot hosts.
And TOTS factor.
What? Wow.
Mung mentioned something like $300,000.
Just to build one traditional cell tower.
Yeah. And for decent 5G in a city, he was saying maybe one per block. That scales incredibly fast. That cost has to go somewhere, right? Like onto our bills.
Well, that's the implication. And that's where this alternative model comes in. Instead of just pouring billions into more and more towers, what if you could securely tap into, useful Wi-Fi networks that people and businesses already have? The decentralized model lets these big carriers see and use that shared coverage.
So it's like a way to potentially expand the network without the massive price tag, which, fingers crossed, might stop our phone plans getting even more expensive.
That's the potential, yeah. It offers a different route. And the tech that makes this sharing and rewarding possible, that's where things like DePIN come in.
DePIN. Okay, sounds techy.
Yep.
Decentralized physical infrastructure networks.
You got it. Helium is kind of the poster child for this.
How does that tech actually help, though? Especially with reliability. Mung mentioned resilience.
Think about traditional networks. You often have these big central points, right? Key towers or hubs.
Sure.
If one of those goes down, boom, big outage. DePIN spreads the control and the data across like thousands of these independent hotspots.
So no single point of failure.
Exactly. It's distributed. So it's much harder for a local problem, an outage, some kind of disruption, maybe even censorship attempts to take down the whole network. It just makes it inherently tougher, more resilient.
Okay. That makes sense. Distributed strength. And this isn't just a white paper idea, right? You mentioned partnerships. Telefónica.
Yeah, that was back in January 2024, and Nova Labs partnered with Telefónica, a major player in Latin America.
And what was the goal there?
Pretty much what we've been talking about, helping Telefónica fill in those coverage gaps, those dead zones, but also helping them offload traffic where their own network was getting jammed up, using Helium to supplement their main network.
Okay, so real-world use case. And then the big one, more recently, April 2025, AT&T.
That's a huge one, a global giant.
Definitely.
And that partnership means AT&T customers, if they wander into range of a Helium mobile hotspot,
their phone just connects automatically.
seamlessly. Yeah, their phone can use that Helium coverage to boost their connection, especially if AT&T's own signal is weak right there. It just adds another layer.
So how big is this Helium network now? How many of these hotspots are actually live?
The numbers are pretty significant. The source mentioned 95,272 mobile hotspots globally.
Wow.
With the U.S. having the most. And that's just for mobile. There's also a whole separate network for Internet of Things devices.
The IoT stuff.
Yeah, like sensors, trackers, that kind of thing. There are 284,053 active IoT hotspots worldwide on Helium. So it's a pretty substantial footprint already out there.
Okay, so quite established already. Given that and these big partnerships, what's next for Nova Labs? What are they aiming for?
The focus seems pretty clear. Go global. They want to basically repeat the success they've had with Telefónica and AT&T.
Find more partners?
Exactly. More collaborations with telecom providers in, Europe, Asia, other regions.
Yeah.
Keep building out this decentralized layer, integrating it with the traditional carriers worldwide.
Right. So, okay, let's sort of wrap this up. What we've seen in this deep dive is that decentralization, using Helium as the example here, it's not just tech jargon.
Not at all.
It seems to offer a really different model for how we build telecom networks, how we pay for them. Little guys can earn revenue, big companies can cut costs and reach more places.
And potentially the end user gets better coverage, maybe even sees some cost benefit down the line. It challenges that top-down way of doing things.
It really does. Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener. If this model, sharing existing private infrastructure, rewarding people for it, can work for something as big and vital as telecom, benefiting individuals, small businesses, and huge corporations, where else could you see this idea working? What other networks or services that you rely on every day might benefit from this kind of shared decentralized approach? Something to think about.